Hello, welcome back to another video. Today it's a bit of a garden update. As anyone in the UK here knows, the weather has been insanely hot recently, like multiple heat waves and all sorts. And I mean, partly I love it. I love how light it is now, like in the evenings and the mornings, but I actually really hate when it's so hot. I love like spring and autumn. I'm definitely more of like the transition seasons. But there was plenty that needed doing in the garden, so I got myself out there into the heat. You will see my progressively developing sunburn throughout the day, which I didn't even realise because I tried to choose a day where it was actually quite overcast and it was actually quite cloudy, so I wasn't really expecting to burn, but I guess I hadn't actually really looked at like the UV index or whatever for the day and had just thought, oh, it's fine, it's not sunny. But anyway, the first task was the lavender bush at the front of the house. So this thing is absolutely huge. This is, obviously I'm in a rented place and this was already here. So this is like part of the house. It's like it's like the landlord's. But it is, I mean, it's stunning and I get so many bees on it. But basically there's all these like little plants, like little lavender plants where it like start to self-seed in front of the lavender. So I'm trying basically like pulling some of them up and potting them purely, so that I get to then have some lavender. I can, take it with me. I can give some to friends and family. But equally then, whenever it comes to me moving out, the landlord's not going to come back and the front garden is like entirely taken over by lavender, which I'm sure they won't appreciate. Equally as well, it doesn't really look like the lavender bush has been like pruned properly, like at least last year, maybe in a couple of years. It's all sort of like collapsing on itself. So I just thought I would trim a bit off and make some little like cute lavender bouquets or something. So I'm going to do that. But I don't think it's quite at the point to actually prune the lavender yet. I'm not entirely sure. If anyone knows, like, please let me know. But I literally just kept stopping what I was doing and like looking at all of these bees and was like, oh my God, there's so many bees around me. Like part of me was like the panic of like, oh my God, there's so many bees, like I'm going to get stung. And then the other part was like, oh my God, this is gorgeous. So it's really nice when you just sort of like stop and like just like chill for a second. You're like, oh my God, there's actually so much nice stuff around me. So that was really nice. And like direct contrast to then me yanking out plants like right underneath where I was seeing these bees. But I know that it's all going to be, it's all for a purpose. I'm not just pulling them out, like you would with weeds and stuff like that. So that was the first task. So as you can see, I got a lot of cut lavender from doing this, and I genuinely, like, I've barely even touched like the whole lavender bush out the front of the house. Like there is so much, and there's still so much that's sort of like, it's because it's almost got so long and so heavy that it's then all kind of growing outwards rather than upwards, if that makes any sense. But anyway, I thought I would sort of like put together these cute little bouquets of little lavender. I was gonna like put a couple around the house and then like give some to friends and family and things like that. But little update on that, I actually didn't end up giving these to anyone and didn't end up having them around the house because maybe it was just because it was so hot when I was doing all of this, but honestly they all got really, really like dry and brittle, honestly, within a day. Like all of the actual lavender, be like lavender buds or like seeds or all of the actual lavender was like falling off within like less than a day. So what I actually then just did was sort of like brush it all off and kind of like collect it all off, and then I'm gonna try and just see if it'll dry out anymore, and then put it in like some little bags, so have like some little lavender bags or something instead. But so it did kind of feel like, I mean, this took a while, and it did like almost feel like I was like wasting my time a little bit, like watching it back. But it was also just like a really fun and like quite like meditative and like calming activity to do, which I quite enjoyed. So I am just going to get my wisteria potted up. So the poor thing is still just in this pot. I've basically got a combination of compost and horticultural grit, and then I'm just going to chuck all this in the pot. So I'm just sort of like separating out at the minute, making sure there's no like clumps of compost. Apparently chucking all over myself in the process. Feels like I'm making the crumble that I did in like, I think it's the last video, but like with soil. I don't know if I'm supposed to bury it up to that point. I don't know. Right, there we go. If anyone has planted wisteria before and knows whether or not this whole bit needs to be buried, please do let me know, because I have no clue. So for now I'm just going to pop this back in. But I am actually in the process of making some really cute little plant markers, so make one for my wisteria. So I have a bunch of these like little tiny mini lavender plants that I've basically like pulled out of the ground in the front garden. And before anyone says, I've done it because, so obviously I'm in a rented place and the landlord hasn't actually put down like any sort of like membrane underneath, and so everything like the weeds and all sorts, like it all just self-seeds and it all just comes back all the time. But that does also mean the lavender does it as well. And so I have like a ton of these tiny little plants just starting to grow. I don't want it to completely take over the front garden, so I've basically pulled some up, and I'm going to try potting them so that I can then have more lavender plants elsewhere. So this is just a mix of compost, sharp sand and horticultural grit. So I found that it's a really good mixture. It's sort of almost like the budget version of having things like vermiculite, perlite, things like that. But I just found that it's got much better drainage than just compost itself. So one thing that I'm going to do with all of these, it's not actually something I've done before, but it's just like water the whole lot first. Just so I'm then like kind of sort of like drowning the plants when I first put them in, but so that they're going into like nice wet compost. I don't want to say the word moist on here, but you know what I mean. So I'm gonna put probably like 2 or 3 to a thing, purely because
don't know how well these are actually going to do. They should be fine because a lot of them already actually have roots on them anyway. But we will see. And then once they're a bit bigger, I can always sort of like, you know, separate them into their own like pots. Right, on to the last one. I've got so many of these left. So I'm going to be doing this for the foreseeable future. But hey, this could be like the unlimited lavender hack. So, okay, I will be back when they're all done. So all of the lavender plants, there's so many, you know, all the way around here. Yeah, any of my friends, family, co-workers, anyone want a lavender plant? Because I've got loads, and there's like multiple plants per pot, so I've tried to kind of do like 2 or 3 per pot. But yeah, there's loads, never ending lavender.
So one of my main tasks for this weekend was getting these planters sorted. So I actually built these out of pallets, and then I just used like a sort of plastic lining, and then I'm just honestly filling up these planters with whatever I have. So I tend to just use I will honestly use like anything, like cardboard, stones. If I had like leaves and grass cuttings and things like that, I'd add that in there as well. It just means that you don't have to add like as much compost and soil and stuff like that in there, but you basically just want it to be all stuff that is gonna either break down, or it's all like organic stuff, like, you know, natural materials. It's not like you don't want to be filling it all with plastic. So I say that with a plastic lining, but you know what I mean. So I just used what I had, which on the day was cardboard, some stones, and then I just had loads of compost, but just like different types. So this one that I'm using at the minute is actually from Aldi, and it's more like, it almost feels like there's more like wood chip and like wood mulch in there that's like really, really fine. And then the one from B&Q, which I also then use, that's almost like, I don't really know how to explain it, but it's almost like, obviously every single brand, they're going to have different things that they use. And so I felt that like having 2 different ones, I don't know, I just felt like I was doing something good by doing that. I might just be completely chatting out my arse, but who knows. So this first planter, I am doing like tomatoes, basil and marigolds. I did actually as well, I put a couple of nasturtiums in there, but that was later on. I don't think I filmed it. It was just based on what I had left that didn't go in a different planter. So I'm just sort of like adding in the plants into the planter. I'm really enjoying like learning all about sort of like companion planting and planting to like sort of like planting for sustainability. And, you know, I'm really trying to make sure that I am planting stuff that is, you know, is not only good for the plants, it's good for the soil as well, and it's good for like the soil health. It's like one thing I've seen recently is sort of using like ground crops like buckwheat and clover or crimson clover or something like that, and they're basically using those as a way of like suppressing weeds, but also like improving nitrogen in the soil. Like there's just so many things. It is literally like a rabbit hole, and I am definitely like, I've gone head first. down the rabbit hole. And I mean, I'm absolutely loving it. But yeah, it's definitely, there's a lot, and I feel like you could probably get very overwhelmed with it very quickly. But I feel like I'm just trying to kind of just take what works for me and see like what I want to do with it and just go with it, really. Like, try not to overthink it too much. Like, I probably overthink everything in my life, and I'm really, really trying to not overthink the gardening too much. But yeah, I am really trying to sort of do like companion planting. I love the sort of like cottage garden vibe as well, where you've just got like little bits of stuff everywhere. So definitely want to be doing that, especially with like container gardening as well. It's like I don't know, like I feel like it's just a whole different kettle of fish than when you're actually planting in the ground. So that's why I did actually end up using like some slow release, like fertilizer, like plant food, whatever, because I felt like the plants that I had, like my tomatoes and stuff, they've been really struggling in the pots. I think they've had like nutrient deficiencies and things. I guess because it's like, obviously if it's in pots, when you're watering it and there's like the water draining out the bottom, it's getting rid of the nutrients so much quicker than it would be if it was in the soil, like actually in the ground. Like, those nutrients aren't just going to wash away as much as they are with pots, which I don't know why I didn't even think of that when I first started. But anyway, so I did add in like some feed, like fertilizer, feed pellet things, and hopefully that will help them out. But I do want to look at like some other plants that might help, basically just like the plants that'll help each other. So I know like adding beans or something like that can help fix the nitrogen. But again, I would not see me as any sort of like gardening knowledge oracle, whatever, because I am genuinely just learning as I go and seeing what works for me. So one thing you might be wondering, and I will address it, these 3 little pots that are just empty within the planter. So these are terracotta pots, and I am basically going to try and test out a self-watering system. So I don't know if it's pronounced like Ola or Oya, but it's basically like a really, really, I think it's like quite like an ancient method of like self-watering plants. You essentially get like terracotta pots, which are obviously like really porous, and then they are sort of like buried within the soil. Obviously you put something over them like to cover the top, and then you like, so I've just put like blue tack on the bottom of like the hole in the terracotta pot so that nothing will just like leak straight out the bottom. But then because the terracotta is porous, it basically, the water will like be pulled out of the pot like into the soil where the plants actually need it and as they actually need it. So yeah, I'm hoping that it's actually going to go really well, but we shall see. I kind of wanted to, I guess, like find ways to garden that actually meant it was easier for me to maintain the garden. I know that I can be really, really like obsessive with different hobbies, and obviously with something like gardening, like these are living things, and like this is like potential food at some point. And so I don't want me just being like obsessive in my hobbies to then sort of like have a detrimental effect on that. And I guess, you know, if I forget to water stuff for a week because I'm focusing on other things, like my plants then all die, you know. So I just basically wanted to find ways that would help like maintain the garden as easy as possible, really. And equally as well, so that I don't have to spend time like watering my plants every single day. Like, I could just fill up these self-watering systems as and when it's needed and then go from there. So I'll let you know how those go. So far, I did all this probably about a week ago, and so far it's been really, really good, and I do think that it is really working. But I'll keep testing it for a little bit longer and then let you know how all that goes. So one thing I feel like I've really felt this year, and I think it's probably that thing of getting like really obsessive with hobbies. I think I've basically just felt like I've really been on the back foot a bit and like constantly chasing my tail. I think it's probably because I'm trying to do like everything all at once. But I'm really hoping, I think that I feel like I feel like the benefits of everything that I'm doing this year. I feel like I feel the benefits of it more next year. You know, like I'm going to have like these planters already built and set up for next year. I'm not going to have to worry about that. Like there's a lot of things that I feel like I'm doing this year that, yeah, just I won't have to do next year. So then hopefully I'll have a bit more time to actually get on top of things with like the gardening and the planting. I feel like I'm just constantly sort of, yeah, like chasing my tail a bit with all the gardening stuff. Like there's always stuff that needs doing and then like plants are dying, and yeah, it's been a bit of a nightmare. But the good thing, I guess, with gardening that I'm realising is obviously it's kind of the same process every year. So everything I'm doing this year is sort of teaching me and I'm learning from it so that then hopefully next year will be better. And then, I mean, it's quite good, I guess, that I've literally started this at 25. So, you know, hopefully by the time I'm like 30, 35, whatever, I'll just be able to completely like feed myself. I feel like I'm gonna like listen to that back when I'm older and go, ha ha ha, yeah, you're so funny. You thought you'd be able to like be self-sufficient within 5 years, idiot. But anyway, so just like filling up these self-watering systems now. I did as well just put, because obviously it was like the first time planting all of this out, I did actually water like the whole planter as well as these self-watering systems, just because obviously it's like you're like planting out new plants. I wanted to make sure that like the compost and everything was, you know, it wasn't just like bone dry in there and just completely reliant on these self-watering systems. I actually only had like little plastic lids to go over the top. I have actually found though that they work absolutely fine, and I have sort of like checked around the soil. Like I haven't watered them since doing this, since actually watering the whole lot. I haven't watered the plants individually. I've only topped up the self-watering system, and then I think it has rained like a couple of times, but not really for very long. And all of the plants, like, you know, most of them are doing quite well. When I actually check the soil, like the soil is moist and there's like water in there. So they are doing well, even with plastic lids on. So that's good. So with the planters, what I ended up doing was I've got two planters that are my sort of like tomato planters, and they've got tomatoes, basil, marigolds, and then a couple of random nasturtiums kind of dotted about as well. And then I've got a cucumber planter, which has one lonely cucumber plant, which I've got one cucumber out of so far, which I think I picked too late, and it's kind of bendy. And then the plant really has not done well with all of the like up and down heat and heat waves and stuff that we've had. So it's kind of like dried up a bit and got a bit crispy. But in that planter there was cucumber, a couple of sunflowers, which are still really small, and then I think I put in a couple of cosmos and nasturtiums, just little bits like that. But those are the planters that I've gone with so far. There are others that I have planned, but I still need to build the planters. So yeah, that's what I've done so far. I did then also get these. So these are like self-watering spikes. So it's basically the same sort of principle, the same idea, but it's just in a spike so that you can have them in like plant pots rather than in like raised beds or planters. I guess, you know, it's just using less of the actual like surface space of a pot. But then you basically just use bottles which you fill with water, tip upside down and put into the spike. So there obviously will be some spillage when you do this. But these as well, I found are actually working really, really well. And I just sort of like add in a spike into, I've done it mainly in the plants or in the pots where it's like food stuff. So these are like my potatoes, and I've done it in those. I've done it in a couple of like the bigger flower pots as well. The only thing I would say with this, you'll see this bottle, it did not want to do it. I think it's one of the sort of like thinner, like more malleable plastic bottles. So that harder plastic Fanta bottle and the squash bottles, they did fine. But the more like thinner plastic, it just sort of like bent up and it just did not like it. Glass bottles would be the absolute best. And I have actually now got like a whole bunch of new glass bottles from like family members. I've just asked them to like save stuff. So I've done that as well, and then I'll replace everything with glass bottles at some point. But yeah, this is the other self-watering system that I'm testing out, which has been going great as well. Onto my hopefully final job of the gardening weekend, but planting out the mint that I had propagated. So I think I showed this probably a few vlogs back, but this mint has been in like the little glass jar where it's propagating for a little while, I won't lie. And you can see like most of them had like some good roots on there. Some of them are a little bit like wibbly and whatnot, but they all had at least like one root on. So I was like, great, I'll plant all these out. And so I've just put them into some pots, exactly the same sort of like soil mix as what I was doing before. Just put like a few of the stems in each pot, and then we'll see how they grow. So this was my final job of the weekend. It was a very long weekend, as I'm sure you can imagine. Obviously, I've only shown little clips of the things that I've done, but I hope you enjoyed, and I will show like more regular updates for things over on my Instagram. Feel free to check that out. It's exactly the same username as my YouTube. But I hope you've enjoyed this little garden update, and let me know if you like seeing this sort of thing. I am sure I will be doing more gardening stuff. It's a really busy garden season at the minute, especially with me being on the back foot, like I said. So hope you enjoyed, and thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, all that stuff. Comment if you really loved this video and would like to see more garden stuff. So thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next time. Thanks.